storytelling. He's currently the president of the National Speakers Association Mountain West chapter and the creator of the NSA Story Jam National Competition. And we're so excited to have him here with us today. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks. Okay, there's more people here than I thought there was going to be. I was only thinking there was going to be like 30. Everybody was going to be online. I hope I got my slides on the right ones. Okay, what did they say to be calm? What they say, imagine everyone in the audience naked. Why would they say that? I don't want to do that. Okay, listen, you're okay. You've been practicing this. You've been memorizing it. You got everything down. Just start with your story. Joke. Story? Joke? Was it a joke or was it a story? Well, I'm a CPA. Why do I have to do this? How many of you have felt that way? When you're getting ready to give a presentation, you stand up there and think, why on earth am I doing this, right? So how many, by the show of hands, would say that giving a presentation is in the top 5 most favorite things to do? Top 5 most favorite. Okay, we got one person here, a couple people, that's great. How many of you would say it's in your bottom 5? Right? It's in some people's, and this picture, I have to address this picture. Look at what he's using as a presenting tool. How many of you owned an overhead projector? Raise your hands, people, right? We all had these things with our grease pencils when we were doing our presentations. Giving a presentation, you're not alone if this is something you don't like to do, okay? This is something common. Most people don't like doing it. In fact, 74% of the population suffer from a condition called glossophobia, okay? Research has been done over and over and over again on this topic. What are people afraid of? And in almost every single one of them, giving a presentation or public speaking is in the top 10, most in the top 3. In this list, it literally was number 1, followed by death and end of life, spider. You know, do you remember Jerry Seinfeld? He did his comedy skit, and I can't deliver it as funny. I don't know why sometimes comics, they deliver a line that's the same that you say it, and it's funnier. He said in one of his monologues, why are people, would they rather be in the coffin than deliver the eulogy at a funeral? See, it's not that funny, is it? I thought it was, but when he says it, it's really, really funny. That's the truth, though. People are so freaked out when it comes to giving a presentation. And how many of you, by the show of hands, in your school training, took a public speaking class? Okay, it was there, wasn't it? But when you went through it, was it something you were thinking, get the grade, moving on? I have too many other things I got to do. This is not what my professional career path is. I'm just going to do what I got to do and get out of this class. I speak at universities all over Utah, in fact, all over the country, in their public speaking classes. And when I go in there, the professors are always coming back to me at the end of it going, you should do this more. I said, this is all I do. I don't understand. He said, we need people to do this. And you know, it's funny because this isn't something that is just new. Warren Buffett actually said this quote when he was talking to a university school of university. He said, if you can't communicate, it's like winking at a girl in the dark. I think everyone, when they heard that, it was like, I can't process that very well. But then he said this stuck with everybody. My public speaking course is arguably the best investment I've ever made in my life. This man's made a lot of investments. But during this interview, he expressed that the one skill that he cultivated was taking Zig Ziglar's course of public speaking. And it made a colossal difference in his life. Not just when he was on a stage. Interfacing with small groups in his office, interfacing with his team, communicating with clients, communicating with prospective clients. This all comes to the table when you're making presentations. Now, I believe this. I believe change is critical. Change is the access point of all communication. And I believe that giving a good presentation is fundamental in causing that change. Because you can talk all day long. You know, if you think about it, why are you giving a presentation? Why would you be assigned to give a presentation? It's a sales presentation or it's a client overview and you're going through information. Okay, could you not just send them the information? When you're selling, you send a proposal to the customer and then they want you to come and present. Why? They have your proposal. Why do they want you to come and present? Because they want to see if they like you. They want to see if they could work with you. They want to interact with you as a person. They want to see if you are someone they can relate with. Okay? So today, I'm going to talk about cybersecurity. That's terrifying to me. In fact, it's funny because I retired last December from the advertising world here in Salt Lake City. And my IT cybersecurity guy at our ad agency said, we have the solution to solve most of our problems at the agency when it comes to cybersecurity. And I said, really, what is it? He said, you're leaving in December. Because I'm always the one that says, hey, update to the newest software. And I got a phone call 2 seconds later, why did you do that? I don't know, it said click the button, so I did. I'm the one that always got us in trouble. This is a scary time, isn't it? This is a very scary time. The world's changing way out of control on us. What we're going to talk about today is something that's been around since the beginning of time. Being able to communicate with other people. You can't let it go away because this is how relationships were built. Did any of you experience a deficiency in communication and relationships during COVID? So many companies experienced a hit in their corporate culture, it was staggering. We did. We saw our corporate culture shift dramatically. All of a sudden, what mattered to our people wasn't having fun and interfacing and coming up with great ideas. It was how much can they make and how much home time can they have. It changed a lot. Okay, so we're in this changing world. Well, what I want to do today, I'm going to go through a ton of information. This is typically a 4-part series workshop that I do with corporations and their executives, taking them through this process of teaching them how to present better, okay? I'm going to give you a Cliff Note version of it, but what I want you to do is look for 3 things. Some of the things you're going to see and hear me say, you're going to say, knew it, check, knew it. Some of the things I'm going to show you, you've never seen before, okay? What I want you to look for is 3 things that you can take from what I'm telling you this afternoon and you can improve it. You know, I saw something funny the other day. I'm going to start doing this because I think it's great. You know the Get Better cards, when they send you a Get Better card? I'm going to start sending those to people, not on their birthday or not when they're sick, just saying, you could be better, so I'm going to send you this card. Get better soon, kind of thing, right? I thought that was hilarious. I'm going to start doing that. I think it'll be great. So we're going to go through 3 phases here, okay? We're going to go through the discovery phase, the development phase, and the delivery phase. Again, look for 3 things. Just take 3 things. You can't take everything I'm going to give you and implement it, okay? I want you to look for 3 things that are going to help you be better the next time you present, okay? And we're going to talk about how you practice these things when we get to the delivery phase of this. So let's talk about discovery. Let's talk about discovery for a minute, because I think one of the greatest things, if fear is an issue, anxiety is an issue, I want to talk to you about how to overcome that single fear. Knowledge. Being ready will trump almost all, notice I said almost all of the anxiety. If you know what you're going to present, if you are well prepared, your anxiety level is going to decrease. Now, let's talk about this anxiety level. When you step off a curb, are you terrified? How many of you stepped off a curb today or up a curb? We do this all the time. It's just one step, right? Well, last week, I jumped off a 140-foot bridge down in New Zealand. Same exact motion. Very different environment. Now, I coach people all the time that you can take advantage of this anxiety by getting one thing in your mind. Switch it from fear to excitement. It's the same exact emotion. If you can just convince your brain, I'm not scared, I'm excited, and just take the step. So here I am on this perch, 141 feet above the water. The guy is holding on to a rope that's around my waist. I'm all tied up, it's on my feet. And he lets go of me when he says, okay, Michael, and he goes, 3, 2, 1. And I just dove off. And you can hear him in the video going, oh, I guess he's going. Because no one does that their first time. Everyone stands on that edge and goes, oh, they back away. As soon as the countdown starts, he said by 2, they're sitting down. And I thought to myself, I've got to prove this. So I'm standing there. Am I nervous? Absolutely. I don't jump off a bridge every day. I am nervous, but I'm excited. And I'm going to prove that you can do this just by taking the leap. And so I dove off. And it's fun to have that video now that I can prove to people that I did jump off that bridge. Taking that one step is the key thing to start getting more comfortable with it. And remember, giving a presentation is not going to be easier. If you don't do it all the time, it's always going to be a little bit nerve-wracking. Just think before you get ready to give your presentation, you're going to be fine. No one in that room is going to attack you. No one in that room is going to sniper you from the back of the room. What are your feelings? Just like I said when I came out earlier, I'm not ready for this. People are going to judge me. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm too short. I'm too fat. I'm too tall. I'm too ugly. All these things that come in are self-defeating, are very, very mental. If you can just step past them and step off that edge, you're going to be fine. You just need to just keep rolling with it, and eventually it will come. The more you know about your presentation, the more you know about your topic, the easier it's going to be because you can continue to move. Now, we're going to talk about memorizing your presentation. How many of you like to memorize your presentations when you do them? Okay, a couple people. A couple people like to memorize them. I can't memorize them because I was in theater, and if I memorize them and I go off my script, it's like, how do I get back on my script? I lose track of where I am, oh my gosh, and then I look like I'm fumbling. The other thing that's really interesting for me, and a lot of people with memorizing, is if you do go off script, when you're memorizing it, you're talking it very clearly, very articulately. The words are just coming and they never stop. It's just like watching Les Mis. It just keeps going and going and going and going. You burst into song maybe, I don't know. But then when you have to not go on script, you start breaking apart. You use right, like. You start using these filler words because it's not memorized. And so the contrast is drastic. So I'm going to teach you a new tool of how to be able to present better, more comfortably, without having to memorize the whole thing. And I think you're going to love that because that's really easy. This is a quote that I came up with during the Olympics. When my advertising agency handled all the Department of Transportation during the Olympics when they were here. And when we won that, we decided in order for us to be able to counsel the state on how to handle transportation, we had to know everything. So for one solid year, we did research. We started out with structural research. What do we need to do as far as structure in our transportation system to make it flow? At about a third of the way through the year, we realized that is not the problem. You know what the problem is going to be during the Olympics when it comes to traffic? Us. People. So we started researching people, and after a year of research, we landed on one piece of research that we built our entire strategy on. You know what that was? Fear. So I don't know if you remember, if those of you that were here during the Olympics, the news started saying it's going to be Armageddon. Dogs and cats living together, you're not going to be able to get anywhere. You might as well go buy all the toilet paper and not wait for COVID. It's going to be a nightmare. We scared everybody to death about the Olympics. Companies were changing their drive times. They were changing truck routes. We did everything we could because we have one artery here. And so we did everything we could to freak everybody out. Well, it worked. Second week of the games, the International Olympic Committee came to our agency and said, you got to tell the people in Utah it's okay to come down to the Olympic Park. Because the only people at Olympic Park are people that came here to see the Olympics from outside the state of Utah. So the news, literally, we gave them talking points to say, hey, the Olympic Park's open. There's no traffic getting to the Olympic Park. Come on down to the park. We were given an Olympic international torch and commissioned by the Olympics to build a plan, a template for transportation for the Olympics in every country from now on. We took it to Italy to help them implement it. The more you know, the less you guess, and guessing's expensive. So when you're getting your presentation ready, know a lot. Get as much information as you can. Start digging in so that you can have enough to work with in your presentation, okay? That knowledge is super powerful. Now, legalities and ethics. There's a couple things to remember with this when you're building your presentation. And this, we won't go deep into this because you're not going to bump into this a lot. Using pictures off the internet used to not be that big of a deal. Now it's a big deal because if somebody in this room whips out their camera, takes a picture of my slide, puts it on their Facebook page, saw a cool presentation about presenting, and I stole that picture in the background, as many companies that are now offering stock photography, there is a law firm that was started to help protect them and get money back for it. Okay, so you need to be very careful about what you use in your presentation that gets into the public eye. And it would be one thing if everybody in this room did not have a camera on them. Okay? Everybody in this room has a camera on them. Now, from an ethics position, I also want to tell you, be careful the information you use. If you use someone else's information, give credit there. Because that's an equity issue. If you use something that someone else said or did and you're claiming it, or even if you're not saying it's not yours, it assumes that you're claiming it, you could get in trouble. I was working with KSL. I built all the KSL sales presentation for a number of years. One of the general managers called me and said, I need you to come to my office right now. And I thought, oh, I'm in trouble. So I grabbed my stuff, I ran over to his office, and I walked in, and there was a young man sitting at his conference table. He said, I want to introduce you to somebody. So I went over and I sat down, and here's this young kid, and he looked pretty dapper. He had a really nice suit on. And he's sitting there, he's got his laptop, and Dan Checketts is the manager of the TV station. He looks at him, he says, show him your stuff. I need you to show him your stuff. He's the guy that works with us. So he turns his laptop to me and showed 5 of my presentations on his laptop. And I'm looking at Dan going, am I getting punked? And finally, after the 5th one, I turned to him and I said, who are you? Who are you? And he said, why? I'm so-and-so. I just started a multimedia company. I said, you just showed 5 of my projects. Well, we can do this. I can do this kind of work. Do you think he ever worked in Salt Lake City again? You can't risk your equity like that. Make sure you give credit where credit is due. If you see a picture you want and you're not going to buy it, so you're protected, go shoot it. You want a picture of a hand holding a bunch of pennies and you found one on iStock? Don't snag it and use it and just think you're going to get away with it, because 7 years later, they sent me a $3,500 bill for using a pirated photograph. I took 20 minutes and had my daughter hold a bunch of pennies and shot the same photo. All of those photos have metadata in them. They're gonna find you. They have lawyers that's all they do all day long. Drink coffee, find pirates. Okay, so just use stuff, be ethical about it so you don't get in trouble, because everybody's got a camera. And when I say do research and get your stuff, what could you do with that Swiss Army knife? Nothing. But if somebody said to you, do you have everything you need? Yep, I got everything I need. I could change a tire with that knife, but I can't hold the knife. So think about what you're putting in your presentation. Don't overpack it. You can overpack a presentation and get yourself in trouble. So years ago, when the desktop publishing came into town, I thought, I'm going to be the guy. I went to California. Aldous was doing a whole show. I spent a week and a half there learning everything and at the end of that I said, I'm going to be so rich, I can do this as good as them. I came to Utah and I built a seminar called The Learning Curve. One in Logan, one in Ogden, one in Ogden, one in Salt Lake, and one in Utah County. I charged $750. Back then, that was $1 billion. $750 for people to come and learn how to do everything you need to know about desktop publishing. Yep. First one I did in Ogden, 12 people signed up. I was expecting 1,200. 12 people signed up. $750. They're sitting in the audience, and I have a 2-inch binder. And in that binder is everything you need to know how to do desktop publishing. I worked my guts out to build this system. I started going. First thing I did is said, let me explain the equipment. This is a Macintosh 2CX. It has a scanner it's got a SCSI port in it that allows me to scan photographs. I've got a USB drive. I've also got a SCSI drive that's a Bernoulli drive that has removable data in it. And I'm going 100 miles an hour. Well, about 10 minutes into my presentation, everybody's kind of going, and I'm noticing they're not taking notes. So I think, I got to ramp this up. I got to speed this up. So I start going faster. I scan in a document, I put it into PageMaker, I take it into all this and I do some photo effecting and I take it back out, I put it in a PageMaker, I paginate it, I put it in a thing, I print it out on the printer and I hold it up and I show everybody. See how easy that is? We broke for lunch. 8 people came back. I'm not refunding anybody's money. I'm saying to myself, that's your problem. So I just hauled 2 days. I hauled through this information. So I came to Salt Lake. I thought, I've just got to make this more, I've got to give them more information. So I kept adding to it. I started my Salt Lake one, and at the first break, this is before lunch, we took a first break because everyone was doing the same thing. I had 20 people in Salt Lake. Everybody's folding their arms, people are looking at each other. Some guy on the other end of the table was going like this, and I thought he was a U of U fan, but the guy on the other end of the table had folded a paper football. They were doing this football thing while I was teaching. So I thought, I've lost this group. What am I doing wrong? I'm great at this. And an old guy by the name of Nick Knickerbocker, he worked for Dally's Big and Tall. He's an older guy. He came walking up through the audience, came up to my desk, and he said, he just put his hands on his head and he went, wow, you're amazing. I said, well, thank you. How's it going? He said, oh, you lost me at Scanner. I said, Scanner, that's the first thing I showed you. Yeah. But you're really good at this, man. I'm freaked out. I said, do you think, oh my gosh. So I brought everybody back and I said, is everybody comfortable with the speed that I'm going through this? One lady stood up and said, I don't know what SCSI means. And I went, that was the first thing I talked about, a scanner hooked to a SCSI port to the computer. Yeah, I don't know what port means. I did the rest of that seminar, 2 days, barely scanned in a document. And everybody said, okay, now that was worth it because now we know how to scan a document. I don't even think I could do it, but I think I know how. So when I went to Utah County, I took the equipment in. I explained the equipment before the first break. I didn't turn any of it on. Then I turned it on, and I said, we're going to scan this one picture, and I'm going to show you how to make this picture brighter on the software. 2 days. They got a 2-inch binder of everything you need to know about it, but for 2 days, that's all I did, and everybody gave me a standing ovation because I actually gave them something they could use. So think about this. Don't overload your presentation with so much information that no one can do anything with what you gave them, okay? Just think about that. And remember, your job as a presenter, you're just herding sheeple. You got a room full of people out there. They've all got different expectations. Your job is to try to help keep them together. Okay, your job is to give them information and a rhythm of that information that will keep them engaged and will make them feel like they're learning something. So I set a qualifier at the beginning of this. I want you to pick 3 things. Now you don't have to think you've got to capture everything, right? You're just going to pick up 3 things that you can work on. My objective was to give everybody an opportunity with their own expectation to isolate. That makes it easier for you. You don't have to process everything. Your job as a presenter, if you stand up, now notice, how many of you have been in a presentation where you just stayed sitting down in a conference table? You know you're simply running a meeting, and you may be 1,000 times more comfortable doing that. But if you want to see a funny experiment, the next time you're running a meeting, stand up and just put your chair in and just stand next to the table. You own that room the second you stand up. You want to be in charge of a meeting, stand up, and you will take over. Now you're presenting, so don't freak it out, but you need to all know, you present when you order it at In-N-Out. You present. You present all day long. Don't let it freak you out. Just be comfortable enough to stand up and do what you were going to do sitting down, standing up, and you will be in charge of that meeting. It will also alter your perception that you are in charge of that meeting, okay? Try it out. Just see if that works for you, because it's one thing that we found people find, I don't present that much. No, you present all day long. You just don't think of it as presenting, okay? The other thing that's really important, especially in that environment, is that you know who you're presenting to. Okay, when I came, I walked in and I said, man, I gotta calm this audience down. Guys are crazy. I gotta calm this thing down. I don't want people on tables. I knew you were a room full of accountants, okay? So there's no confetti. I didn't start with Rocky music. I didn't expect you to stand up and memorize something that we could say we're gonna go out and then we're gonna find some cool service project to do. You're accountants. I get that. My job is to give you something you can use later in your job to make your job easier, to make your job better. So when you're giving your presentation, know your audience. Who are they? If every single one of you were 20 years old, this would be a very different presentation. Very different presentation. Because I need to address the information at a level that you're willing to take it in. If you can't consume what I'm delivering you, you won't learn anything. So know your audience. Do a little bit of research. Find out who they are. Some of the fun things that you can do is you can isolate people and get, when I talk at a conference, I always ask the meeting planner, did anybody get hurt at the conference? Anything funny happen at the conference? And then just in the middle of my presentation, I'll make comment about how June broke her ankle checking in. Well, everybody busts out in laughter, but that endears me to them because I was able to relate to them in a very unique way. So look for opportunities to get to know your audience a little bit better so that when you're relating with them, you can actually connect, okay? That's gonna be important for you when you're trying to discover how am I going to be presenting to this group. Discovery is your key thing about getting ready to do your presentation. Now, let's talk about developing it. When you're talking about developing your presentation, we're talking about putting it together. I'm not gonna talk to you about PowerPoint or Keynote. You can use whatever tool you want. What I wanna talk to you about is the construction process, okay? So how many of you, when you do presentations, whip out your computer, start Microsoft Word, and start writing an outline? Roman numeral 1, topic, I, A, topic, B, 2, right? Is that how you do it? You prepare? Now, sometimes I ask people, how many of you grab PowerPoint and start banging slides out? Okay, we've got this new tool, right? And so it's like, screw the outline. I'm going to start banging slides together. I can find some Far Sides and some cat videos and throw this thing together in no time. And we start building slides, right? So we lost our organization tool, but now we're having fun building cool slides. We've got to be careful about that balance. You have to be organized first. Now, I'm going to take you on a journey on a tool that I invented that's very different. I'm not expecting anybody in here to get this this is something that's part of my workshop that takes days. We go through this process and teach you how to do this. It's called cadencing, okay? And this is what it looks like. This is a rhythm map. I'm going to tell you how this happened really fast. So I lost a bet with my wife. How many of you saw Sleepless in Seattle? Come on, guys, raise your hand. You all saw it. You just wore a hoodie. You don't want anybody to see you. So I'm at this show. I got my hoodie on. I don't want anybody to see me. There's 3 or 4 other guys wearing their hoodies in there, and I look at them and I go, you and me, man, no one knows. We're sitting down, and my wife says, you're going to love this. I'm not going to love this. I got so many bigger fish to fry, I can't even deal with them being here. I got to figure this out. Because someone asked me, hey, your presentation that you helped us build is great. Why? No one ever asked me that. How do you know how to do this? Well, I didn't want to say, well, George Lucas and I, we're buddies and I just do it like George Lucas. No, I needed to figure out a reason why. And so I'm sitting in this movie. I vowed not to get into it. 15 minutes into the movie, I've got my hood down. I'm popping popcorn, drinking my caffeine-free Diet Coke Zero with vanilla and cherry in it. I'm in this movie. And I did not want to be. And all of a sudden, I got electrocuted. What happened to me? Oh my gosh, how did that happen? So I backed away from the movie and tried to figure out what happened. And you know what? They're tricky. The movie world is tricky. They use rhythm. There's patterns. The first one that I identified was the soundtrack. So I went back to Sleepless in Seattle in 3 days, 4 times. I wasn't wearing a hoodie, man. I was in there with a yellow pad ledger, and I'm drawing the pattern of this movie. I drew the soundtrack. Then I drew the storyline. Then I drew the character actors. I drew everything I could. And at the end of that movie, there was a rhythm. There's a pattern. And it kind of freaked me out. And I just ruined movies for you for the next year. Because you're going to be sitting in a movie, and if you want to see one that it doesn't work, rent Dumb and Dumber 2. You're welcome. That's my Christmas gift to you. Rent Dumb and Dumber 2, and you will see what I'm talking about. This is a cadence for a presentation. Notice the red line. The red line is designed for me to manage how I'm going to move you. I plug my stories in at a specific place. I tell you funny things at a specific place. I try funny things, and if they don't work, I don't use those anymore. You see what I'm saying? I'm in fluid with my presentation with you based off how you're reacting. So if you're building a presentation, you put your information on this pattern, and you can move it around to make it work better. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit how that works. This is the notebook. How many of you men saw the notebook? Notice I said men. You all saw it. Come on. Nobody's going to raise their hand, right? I sobbed in this movie. I'm sorry. At the end of this movie, I'm a wreck. I couldn't go out of the theater for 10 minutes because I was such a wreck. That rhythm is the rhythm of this movie. Now, notice the emotional level is above the baseline right here. That red line is the baseline, okay? That red line is the baseline. Oh, that's not going to show you. That red line is the baseline, the nominal opinion line. That's the baseline. In this movie, if you could get close to this and see, I've documented everything that happens in the movie so I could move that rhythm. Now, it's a little bit different for everyone. Would you agree with that? You would react to a movie differently than I would. I am a movie fiend. I'm not crazy about it, but I'm a movie fiend. And The Sixth Sense blew my mind. It got me hook, line, and sinker. I cadenced it, and then I had to go see it again, and it was a different cadence. Because then I knew. I'm not going to tell you because I'd ruin it. There's another one you can use for Christmas. This is The Bourne Identity. That movie has sharper spikes in it, but there's still 3 of them. Notebook, Bourne. Look at the end of the Bourne movie. See that little drop? Look at the end of the Notebook. There's no drop. What's the drop? Sequel. It's a setup for a sequel. Okay? That's what that did. Now, one of the greatest presentations of our day by many, many people say that it's the iPhone release Steve Jobs did of the first iPhone. Okay? Have any of you seen that? Did any of you see that video? Okay, it's on YouTube. It's acclaimed as one of the greatest presentations ever. I disagree 1,000 times. This is that presentation. Now, if you watch it with this in front of you, he goes through, and I'm just going to tell you this just outside of all the wallpaper of what happened there. He explains here in the first quadrant what the phone will do. In the second quadrant, he shows off all the cool stuff that it does. Right here at the end, the second to the last line, he tells everybody in that room it's going to be $500. If I'm giving a presentation right now announcing the newest iPhone, I told you it was $500, how many of you would be running to the Apple store right now? Right? I had to get a mortgage to get my iPhone. He told them it was $500, and if you want to hear how the presentation was doing, listen to the applause. Because when he's talking about what the iPhone can do, and he goes to Starbucks and he orders 1,500 lattes and said, I'm just kidding. He actually calls from the map and does this cool thing. The crowd's like, ah! He says, we're going to have this by June, and it's $500. Did he say 100? Did he say 500? And I'm sitting there, just as a businessman, saying, why wouldn't you, before you showed what cool things this thing could do, why wouldn't you say, I want everybody to grab onto your chair. This is going to be $500. In fact, it may be $1,000. And then go through and show everything, and then say, actually, we've priced this out. the top of the line model's only going to be $500. You get clapping. Instead, they built this thing in a pyramid, and he lost all of his momentum. And then, at the end of his presentation, he brought people in from Yahoo, from the phone company that they were using, the cellular phone company, worst presentation people on earth. The guy from Singular, big Southern accent, we are so happy, cue cards, to be in partnership with Apple Computer. We believe this will be magnificent. I was like, what just happened here? The cool thing about this presentation was the iPhone. He could have said anything. But if that presentation was built right, that would have been like their commercial where the lady throws the hammer through the screen, where an ad agency put that together. Okay? Think about rhythm. Think about rhythm as you put your presentation together. Now, let me give a tool you can use. I don't expect anybody to be able to use this tool out of the cage, right? But here's one you can use. It's called a dynamic outline, okay? Simple for you to use. It's a simple modification of something you've used before. Remember this outline? Now what you're going to do is super simple. You're going to make on the left side the outline of your presentation. You're just going to block it off like you've always done it. You're going to create this outline. On the right side, you're going to draw a line, and on the right side, you're going to write down the dynamic pieces of this presentation. What are you trying to make the people feel? What are you trying to convey? How do you want them to react? What are you trying to invoke inside them? And as you see, I clearly explain the expectation and the consequence. This is not a drill and it's not a joke. What do you want them to feel? Put that off to the side, because I guarantee you what's going to happen. Your content is going to change order based off how it's going to make them feel. When you do that, your content will be in a pattern that will deliver more capable to consume. Okay? So this is a tool that you can use right now. You just get your word, whatever word processor you open, create 2 columns, expand one out, outline, and put your information in it, okay? That's going to help you create, and just think in your mind, it's a rhythm issue. I need to be able to present with some variable rhythm. If not, I'm Dumb and Dumber 2. Worst movie ever, okay? Now, let's talk about practice for a minute. I have a fun saying that I like to tell people, and that is that practice makes perfect. Have you heard that before? Now, I changed it. Practicing the wrong things makes them perfect. So if you're practicing the wrong thing, look at my golf game. If you practice golf wrong, you're going to be worse. And I'm proof of that. I thought I was killing it. I didn't know what a handicap was. I thought it was just because I was short. So I'm out golfing at these handicaps, and I'm swinging away, and I'm saying, every third ball goes clear down the green. It's just 1 in 3 is fantastic. So I'm a 10 handicap, maybe a 6. If I'm hitting 3 balls per shot, am I a 6? Because I'm only counting one of them. Everybody counts everything? When I actually realized what handicaps were, and they told me you're an 18.8, I was mortified. And then golf got less fun. Because golf to me was like trap shooting for a long time. But then I started practicing. 2 years I practiced. I wasn't getting a whole lot better. Finally, someone that I was golfing with in a men's league over at Glendale said, you need to go get a coach. You need to have a coach. I can't help you. So I went to a coach at one of the local Salt Lake golf courses, and he said, let's take a bucket of balls and have you hit some balls. So we went up, and I'm banging these balls away. I'm thinking, he's so impressed. Whew, he's so impressed. Do you see the curve on that one? He was so impressed. 4 balls. I hit 4 balls, and he said, come here. Come here. He said, I will coach you next year. You can't hold a golf club until next March. Because I can't fix what you're doing. So you have 2 choices. You can either learn to golf left-handed or wait for a year and we'll see what we can do. That was devastating to me. But if you practice the wrong things, you're going to perfect them. okay? Working with JP Morgan's people. I have a lady that had a body tic. You know what a body tic is? It's where you see people that do certain things when they present with their body. It's like they have these weird deal. She had this. That is not a joke. Her hand was right there the entire time she presented. I said, Julie, you got to put your hand down. My hand's down. I said, no, your other hand. Oh. You got to put your hand down. You can't have your hand there. So I gave her a glass and the remote, and her hands were like this. I can't do this. What's happening? That was the day I learned you don't coach people the day before they present. She had to work for years to drop that hand down. It was so difficult because she practiced it for years. Okay? So practice the right things. Figure them out. When I was in high school, my girlfriend got on the Lagoon Musical Review. Have you seen the shows that they do at Lagoon? Well, back in the day, they were really cool. So I didn't get in there, but my girlfriend got in it, and one of the guys from my high school used that summer to punish me. He kept nudging my girlfriend and snuggling up to her, and I'm going, man, I didn't miss a single show. I'm back in the sound booth every show to make sure he's not doing something frisky with my girlfriend. I was a kid, right? And I was pretty jealous. Well, 3 weeks before the end of that summer, one of the performers got fired for doing something really unethical. And so they came to the crew at the back of behind where the merry-go-round is, that stage. They got them all together and said, we got to cancel the show for the last 3 weeks of the season. How sad. And we said, why? They said, well, we lost this character. We can't do it without that first tenor. And Tim Leishman, who's the sound engineer, said, Mike knows every song. And he's a first tenor. And I had been back in the sound booth with headphones on singing every song all summer. I sang the songs as much as they did. So the leader of the group said, hey, you want to try it? And I said, let's do it. I'm brave. We went down to Mervyn's. Remember Mervyn's in Centerville? I bought white 501 jeans. I had a Where's Waldo red shirt with stripes on it and sequin suspenders, and I went on stage that night. It's probably the bravest thing I've ever done, right? Well, I don't know if I nailed every song. My body never moved. I was exactly 3 seconds behind everything. They had choreographed wired mics like Hangman. These mics were being passed like it was the scariest thing in the world. These mics were just going all over the place, and I'm in the middle of it going, okay. And so I don't know how to dance, so I'm kind of doing what I can to mimic it. So when this is over, I don't have a dry article of clothing on. I am sopping wet. And I am thinking, why did you do this? This is so mortifying. We get behind the thing, and they're laughing. The whole troupe is just going, well, we got to quit. We can't do this. We have to just turn this off. 2 ladies from Wisconsin walk around the corner. Their makeup is run all over their shirt. They walk up to me and they say, how do you do that? And I say, how do I do what? They said, that is the funniest thing we have ever seen. And I just went, I looked at the troupe, the guy that was in charge of it, and he said, we're not changing this. So for 3 weeks straight, I'm in there doing that show. It was funny because by the second week, I kind of got the move down, and somebody came up in the audience and said, hey, I saw this 2 weeks ago. Don't get better. It's really funny. It's really funny, and it sounds really good. You make it so much fun. Just leave it alone. So my wife hates it when I tell that story because she killed herself to make it good, and then I ended up parachuting in and ruining the whole thing. Practice the right thing so that you can be comfortable with it. Make sure that and let me tell you how to do it. Lots of people say when you're practicing your presentation, you just go in front of a mirror. How many of you practice your presentation in front of a mirror? How many of you have actually delivered your presentation in front of a mirror? That's your audience? You never present in front of a mirror. So you're practicing something that you're not going to ever see. And so what happens when you practice in front of a mirror, unless you've done it a long time and you're working on little things like weird body gestures that you do that you've got to stop, okay? You got some of those things you want to catch them, but here's the best way to do that. Set up a video camera. Get 2 or 3 people in your family that are going to mock you for sure. Set up a video camera, give your presentation on film, and then watch your video. then you can look at it from a different perspective instead of looking at it through a mirror, which you will never present at. Now, if you want to have some fun to see if you have any body tics, play it fast forward. Because if you've got a body tic, it's going to show when you're fast forward. I've had people that do this thing, and when you watch it in fast forward, it's amazing. Because you can't see it. You can't see it if I do it like this. If I just do it like this, and I'm talking to you, and I make another step in, and then a few seconds later, I'm still talking, I do this, but fast forward. Watch it fast forward. You'll be able to catch a lot, okay? Let's run through the delivery just real quickly. Delivering is when all the magic happens, okay? So I'm going to give you some tips here that are going to help you. First of all, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Just because PowerPoint has transitions coming out of both ears, don't just say random transition. Don't do that. And don't put a Far Side cartoon in anymore. That's kind of gone away, thank heavens. But be careful what you're pulling off of YouTube and whatever putting in your presentation, because if it disconnects your rhythm, it's going to lower the quality of your presentation. Remember that. Rhythm is everything. Get your rhythm down and just deliver your presentation, okay? Be careful about doing something that you probably shouldn't do because it's going to get in the way, all right? And then, sincerity and simplicity. Be real when you present. Be real. When you're giving your presentation, don't be somebody else. There are books out there that blow my mind that say how to present like Steve Jobs. What do you want to present like Steve Jobs for? And I don't get that. I don't understand. Why would you want to present like somebody? Present like Zig Ziglar. That means you got to get a southern accent and talk like this the whole time in your presentation. Just present like you. Be authentic. That's what people can relate with. People can tell if you're not being authentic, okay? And keep it simple. I can't tell you, that experience with me in the learning curve, that changed me forever. I always test the temperature of how is everybody doing. And one of the best ways that you can tell if your presentation's going good is if you ask a question to the audience and 4 or 5 people nod. Some of people are nodders, some aren't nodders. Have you noticed that? When you're giving your presentation, you'll say something. So presenting is scary, isn't it? And you give a little nod, you'll have 10 people on there. We're like sheep, right? Sheeple. You just nod your head. I will identify 4 or 5 of these people who are going to nod their heads, and I just use them the rest of the time. I'll say something, and if I got people that were usually nodding, I disconnect it. I got to back up. I'll back up. I lost my nodders. What happened? And I'll back up until I can get it. So keep it simple. Keep it direct so that they can understand what you're presenting, because that's where the value is going to come from. They can't take everything in, so keep it as simple as you can. Okay, and relevant. You got to be relevant. I was at a presentation that JP Morgan was giving. They hired this guy to come in, $15,000 for an hour keynote presentation. Now, I'm back in the sound booth, and I'm watching him. He's going along, and he's throwing plush fish out. It's that guy in Portland that did the fish market where they threw fish, and they got these little plush things. He wrote a book about it. So he's out there giving this presentation. In the middle of his presentation, a slide comes on with him sitting in a pickup truck with a little girl. And I'm back in the room went, oh, oops, where's he going with this? And he literally went like this. Oh, I must have put that picture in while I was on the airplane. That's my daughter, Jessica. She just won our town's championship in soccer, and we were going to get an ice cream at I don't know why I put that in there. Anyway, next. The entire room went, is he going to throw a fish? What just happened? Keep it relevant. Keep it on track because your rhythm depends on that, okay? Follow your rhythm. Keep it in track. Physical blocking. You remember the first Apple presentations that they did? Steve Jobs was the only one that stayed by the podium where his computer was. Everybody else, because the stage was 1,000 feet wide, they presented like this. We at Apple are super proud to be innovators, and we've got things that you're just going to you're going to be able to put it in your pocket. They wanted to use the whole stage. Blocking is a part of communicating. You talk with people that use their hands a lot. You talk with people that don't. There is no blocking right here. If you're tucked behind a podium, you need to use your hands. Use some gestures. Move it around a little bit. Because if you lock off right here, it's like locking your knees while you're skiing. You're going to get in trouble. Use your blocking. Move your body. Use your hand gestures. Now, when I watch my video fast forward, it's like a karate movie. I move a lot. My hands are moving, I got things going on, and I watch my video and I just get a chuckle. I just get a chuckle because I'm moving a lot. I think I'm a lot taller than I am, but I still got a lot of movement, okay? So just be comfortable. Get your blocking down, stay in a square. Don't be flying all over the place. If there's lights, stay in the lights. Make sure that you're presenting looks like you're presenting, okay? That's how come I said when you stand up to give your presentation, don't just slide your chair out and stand in front of your chair. This is such a simple thing. Move to the side, slide your chair in. That shows that it's taken, and stand next to it. Because if the chair's out, it looks like you're just going to sit down in a second. Formalize it. Keep it simple, formalize it, and use your blocking. And then you need to run a trick play. This is a fun thing that I love teaching people. Trick plays are if you are giving a presentation and you might hit some rough ground. Have something ready. We were working with a credit union that was trying to pitch Franklin Covey to put a credit union inside of Franklin Covey. And the owner of the credit union said, it'll never happen. It'll never happen. They'll never let us do it. They're too big. And I said, why do you keep saying that? He said it every time. They're too big. And so I finally said, do you know anybody at Franklin? He said, well, one of the members of the board, the guy that started it, one of the guys that started it, it's on our board. And I said, can I interview him? So they brought him into their offices, and I set up a video camera, and he was cool with it. So I just started talking to him. And I said, now, one of the concerns we have is that we're not big enough to service Franklin Covey. And he said, oh, that's not a problem because they get the concept of serving one person at a time. And I went, thank you. I paused, so I had video of dead air. I just went, thank you. Okay, well, thank you so much. I put that video clip in the presentation. I told the president, you don't have to worry about it. But let me warn you, if no one brings up size, you can't click the button. Because what happens if he clicks the button? He brings up size. If it's not a concern, leave it alone. So we're going along in the presentation. I'm sitting in the back of the room hiding behind a plant. That's where people usually park me when I'm helping them. And he's giving the presentation, and all of a sudden, the vice president in front, there's about 12 people watching it. He's sitting in the middle of it. He raises his hand and stops him, and he said, hey, can I, really quickly, do you know how big Franklin Covey is? And I went, oh my heck, this is going to happen. You know how big Franklin Covey is? And he said, yes. And he said, what makes you think your little credit union is going to be able to service a company of our size? And he looked over at me, and I went, shoot that gun. So he said, I'm glad you asked that question. I wanted to be on the same team, so I said, tell him you're glad you asked the question, and then click the button. When that video ended, this VP literally said this. Okay, nobody else asked any stupid questions. Sorry I interrupted. And there was a credit union in their facility for a while. That's how powerful those trick plays can be. If you've got something you're talking about and it's sensitive and you need to have ammo, load the gun. But don't go to it if you don't need it. Be careful about overusing them. Remember what I said about overpacking. Keep the information there so you can resource it quickly if you need it. Because you know what? I promise you, if you're in a situation where you use one of those Easter eggs, that's what we call them, Easter eggs, no one is going to ask another question that's going to get them in trouble. One time, you whip that thing out, it's like, I don't know what he's got hiding in that presentation. I'm not saying another word. Okay, so those are good if you can get them in perspective. And remember, your job is to deliver an experience. They can read the document you sent them. Your job is to give them an experience. So don't think that my job is simply to read what I sent them. Think about your opportunity as a presenter to build a relationship. You have an opportunity there. Cultivate a relationship. Have fun with it. Don't be too stiff with it. Have fun with it. Joke around with them. Build that relationship. That's what that moment's for, is for them to solidify the relationship and build that trust with you, okay? The most powerful tool you will have in your presentation is a story, okay? And if you don't have a story inside of your presentation, you're missing one of the most powerful elevators of emotion. Now, you don't want to just tell any random story. The story has to relate to what you're presenting to. So if you have a situation that your client is dealing with, find another client that dealt with it, create the story out of it using this exact pattern. In fact, if you want to get your phones out and take a picture of that cadence right there is the perfect story cadence for a presentation. Okay? This is the cadence that goes up 2 or 3 bumps, it goes to a climax, and then it comes back down to a resolution. If you put your story in that pattern, your story will work inside of a presentation. And it won't be too long. You don't want to be telling a story where you're all of a sudden telling the Lord of the Rings, right? Your story needs to be short and concise and to the point and deliver a purpose. What's the moral of the story and how can I use that? So if you've got a client that's dealing with something and you can put a story together that shows how you solved it, that story uses both sides of the brain. That story will stick with them when maybe the rest of the presentation won't. Stories are the most powerful weapon you have as a presenter. So you need to take a little bit of time and cultivate your stories so that you can use them that way. Now, presenting is not everybody's favorite thing. Presenting is something that a lot of people say, I wish I never had to do that. But I can guarantee you, and I've seen it several times, and I have several companies that I work with now that have realized that not just giving people the skill set of being a better presenter makes them more successful, it works in all facets of their life. They start thinking about what they say and how they say it more professionally. They think about how they're impacting people more accurately. And by learning how to present well, take 3 things from what I taught you today, work on them and cultivate them so that the next time you give a presentation, you're just that much better. And then I don't need to send you that greeting card. I hope you get better soon. Thank you so much for letting me come and be a part of your day.